Hi, Sean Radcliffe with Radcliffe and Associates here at Coldwell Banker, and I'm joined today by Stephen Decker from 1031 IPX. And Stephen, if you can just kind of start with, for some of us that don't know, what is a 1031 exchange?
Sure thing. Sean, thanks for having me on. A 1031 exchange it's actually a section of the tax code that allows your clients that are selling investment real estate to defer paying their capital gains taxes as long as they meet a certain set of criteria that the IRS has for them. So just for example, let's say you've got a client that bought a duplex. They've been renting it out to tenants for the last couple of years. Maybe they bought it for $1 million and now it's worth $1.5 million. If they just decided to sell that property, cash out, pay their taxes, and walk, on the 500 grand of gain that they made, they would typically give 30 to 40% of that back to the government.
Okay.
Well, if you do a 1031, the government basically says, here, look, Sean, I'm going to let you keep that 30 to 40% as long as you stimulate the real estate economy. So as long as you buy something for 1.5 or more and you meet the time periods that we've laid out for you, then you get to defer paying all of those taxes. So it's a way to defer taxes. A lot of people use them for diversifying their real estate portfolio, consolidating their real estate portfolio. They use them for estate planning purposes, changing markets, and changing property types, actually.
And so a 1031 exchange, this is a high level, I mean, because we could talk a long time about what the actual particulars are, but it's good in all throughout the United States.
Yeah, 1031 is a section of the federal tax code, so it is applicable to all 50 United States. So you can buy and sell anywhere within the United States, and there are 2 U.S. territories as well. Guam and the U.S. Virgin Islands also qualify.
Can I buy commercial and residential real estate under the 1031?
Yes, absolutely. So there's a big misconception out there. The IRS has this term. They say that you have to buy and sell properties that are considered like kind to one another. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times our clients think, all right, if I sold a duplex, I have to find another duplex. That's absolutely not true. As long as it's investment real estate, the IRS doesn't care what the property type is. So you could sell a single family rental, and if you wanted to go buy an office building, you're welcome to do so. So yeah, you can go from residential to commercial or vice versa if you so desire.
Okay. So one of the things that is very particular, and the reason that people use an exchange company is to make sure that they're within the parameters of the guidelines, and that's something that we've talked about and we've guided our clients. But let's talk about what those guidelines look like prior to last Thursday and what the guidelines look like today, because that's something that's really important, I think, to educate people on.
Sure, absolutely. So typically, when you sell a piece of investment real estate, the IRS has 2 time periods that you have to meet. And unfortunately, the IRS is not very flexible with these time periods. So from the time that you close the property that you're selling, the IRS gives you 45 calendar days to identify property that you want to buy, and 180 calendar days to actually close on what you'll be buying. And those are overlapping time periods. Now, the only time that the IRS ever extends those time periods is either in the case of military deployment. So if you were in the military and you got deployed, you would receive an extension until after you return home.
Okay.
Or in the case of a federally declared disaster, typically things like hurricanes, earthquakes, fires, floods, tornadoes, etc. But last Thursday, the IRS issued a disaster relief notice. It's notice 2020-23, mm-hmm. which effectively, due to the coronavirus, COVID-19, pushes back the identification window and or the 180-day window for our clients. Now, it's only for a certain number of clients. It's only if you had a 45-day deadline or a 180-day deadline that falls between April 1st and July 15th. So I'll just give you a quick example. Like, let's say your client's 45th day to identify was going to be on April 15th. Well, now, because of the coronavirus, that date is being pushed back all the way to July 15th. So it gives them another couple months to go find or identify suitable replacement property.
Okay.
Or maybe you had a client with a 180-day time period that was set to expire on May 1st. That date also now gets pushed back until July 15th. So if either one of those dates, your 45 or 180-day deadline, fell between April 1st and July 15th, those dates now get pushed all the way back to July 15th. Unfortunately, that didn't affect clients prior to that. So, at IPX, we don't think that this disaster relief notice went far enough. So we're actually working with a number of real estate trade organizations to go to the Treasury and the IRS and basically ask them to retroactively make these periods go all the way back to the January 20th FEMA declaration. So on January 20th, FEMA issued a disaster declaration as a result of the coronavirus. So we're hoping that the IRS steps forward and extends those time periods and goes back in time for our clients all the way back to January 20th.
Okay. So if I start a 1031 exchange right now, then effectively my dates are all the way out into July 15th.
That is correct. So this is kind of a windfall. We've never had a disaster relief extension apply to people who have not yet sold. So like, for example, if you had a client that closes escrow today, typically their 45-day deadline would expire sometime in late May or early June.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not anymore. Now that will be pushed all the way back to July 15th. So it'll give those clients that are closing within the next month and a half, a little bit of extra cushion to go out and hopefully find something to purchase in the exchange.
Yeah. And that's super helpful information. And that's obviously one of the reasons that somebody would want to work like with yourself on doing a 1031 exchange, to make sure that you do get all of the dates and everything and all the paperwork correctly. I mean, how many times do you get people that try to do an exchange on their own that fail and cost them thousands of dollars, above in taxes, whereas, for a small nominal fee would use your company?
Yeah, I mean, it's shocking. In fact, if you plan on doing a 1031 exchange, the IRS requires that you have what's called a qualified intermediary. That's what my company is.
Okay.
So we have to be involved in your transaction, but it's kind of shocking because the first few months of the year, the first 3.5, 4 months of the year are always the worst time of the year for us, because we get phone calls from clients that say, "Hey, Steve, I just did my taxes with my CPA, and he told me that the triplex that I sold last year, I should have done a 1031 exchange with it. So, I Googled 1031, I found your info." And so the first question they always ask is, well, can I still do it? Unfortunately, the answer is no. You have to set it up with a company like us before you close. But then the second question they almost always ask is, well, why didn't my real estate agent tell me what an exchange is? Now, with your client, Sean, we obviously don't have that problem.
Right.
But that, it does happen on a pretty regular basis. So, and it's really important to know who you're working with on the 1031 side of things, because our industry is completely unregulated from a federal level. So you want to make sure that you're working with the largest, most financially secure exchange accommodator in the country.
Right.
You may recall you and I were connected initially way back when through Christina Smolskis over at Lawyers Title. We're actually owned by the same parent company that owns Lawyers Title, Fidelity Title, Chicago Title, and Tycor Title. So we're all a part of the same family of companies,
Right.
and we are the largest and most financially secure company in the business by far.
And let me just dig into that a little bit deeper. Is that so? When you do an exchange in that, and after you close on those funds, explain what you guys do with that money, because most people think that the seller gets their money and then they get to then go locate the property, but that's not true, and that's why you want to use somebody like your company.
Yeah, that's right. It's not true that you're able to hold your own funds. The IRS requires that the money from your sale come over to your qualified intermediary. So right now we're sitting on billions of dollars of clients' money that are actively involved in 1031 exchanges. And during this kind of a market where there's a lot of uncertainty with regard to the Dow Jones and whatnot, the stock market's in flux. I'm getting basically 2 calls every day. The first call is, has there been an extension? The answer is now yes.
Right.
The second call I'm almost always getting is, what are you doing with my money?
Right.
So our company, we're only banking with financial institutions that have over $10 billion of assets. We're also placing clients that want an extra layer of security. We're placing their funds into what is called a qualified trust account. So if for some reason you're worried that IPX is going to go out of business, if your funds are held in a QT account, a qualified trust account, if God forbid we went bankrupt, which we're nowhere near doing, but if something went to hell, the world went to hell in a handbasket,
Right.
your funds would be protected in that trust account. They would not be deemed to be assets of IPX.
Right.
You want to make sure that your QI has those options. We carry a very large bond and insurance policy as well. I oftentimes challenge my clients, those people that call me shopping, you know, they're calling around 3 or 4 different companies. I always tell them, here are the questions to ask. Here's what we have to offer. Now, you know, I would put our financials up against anybody, and probably 9 times out of 10, we end up landing the deal. So
Right.
it's really important to know those things.
Yeah. And I think that I think one of the biggest takeaways from me in working with your company is how much, when to get you involved in the process. And that is almost about the same time that I mean, first call is to me, you know, talking about selling the investment property. My second call is to Stephen and his group, or having the seller directly, because that's really when it needs to take place, not when we're in escrow. It's prior to even getting the home really on the market, so that we know what our options are and we can start that process. So if somebody they just wanted to reach out to you, bounce some ideas off you, how would they get a hold of you?
I always tell people, give me a call on my cell anytime. You know, my cell phone is 619-246-8187. Again, 619-246-8187. You can also reach me via email at stephen.decker@ipx1031.com. And Stephen is with a PH, so STEPHEN .Decker, like Black and Decker, at IPX1031.com. So here to help out however you guys need.
That's perfect. Yeah. And of course, you know, we're fielding a lot of calls from buyers and sellers and talking about the uncertainty and the market. I can tell you, just looking at the numbers that my team is looking at, is that the market's kind of, you know, just flat. It's kind of in a protective coma. There's not a lot of homes going on the market. There's not a lot of homes coming off the market. But it's still a very healthy place to transact. And I think that where we were at, our low inventory before we started this and our low inventory now will help protect those prices. So we don't see anything to be worried about. Just obviously the number one thing is to stay safe and healthy, and we'll get through this. So if anybody has any questions or anything, I can be reached at 714-497-0160. Or of course you can leave messages down below. So thanks so much, Stephen, and we will definitely stay in touch as things change, and talk soon.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Take care.